Hi everybody, and I'm delighted today to be speaking to our very own Juanita Hughes, who works full-time as a fundraiser for Challenge Ministries in Swaziland. Hi Juanita, thank you for coming on to the meeting. Hiya. Did I get your job title? What's your job title?
I'm actually fundraising and events manager for Challenge Ministries Swaziland UK, so I'm the kind of UK office.
And I just thought it would be really interesting for everybody to be able to hear the perspective of someone whose job it is to fundraise, because we all want to kind of raise funds in some way or another, I'm sure, but wanted to just have a look at, you know, how does that go when it's your full-time job kind of thing. Okay, so how long have you been a fundraiser?
Well, technically, having fundraising in my title has only been about 2.5 years. This is the first job I've had where fundraising was in the title, but pretty much on and off throughout my whole career, I've worked in and out of the charity sector, working in fundraising teams. And so like latterly, I was working the last 11 years, I think it was, for Oxford Colleges as the alumni relations manager, which is effectively an event organizer.
Yeah.
So that's really what I was doing, but it was in the fundraising team. So we were wooing people with fancy dinners to give us money. So, but otherwise, apart from that, I used to just do my own fundraising with a friend locally like you do and everyone else is doing. So it's been in my life, but on my title for 2 years.
Oh, that's good. Okay, thank you, Juanita. So what's the best part of your job?
I think the best part is partly being my own boss and working independently, but I can say more of that later. But it is nice knowing that I've got my brief and I can do it how I want. I don't have somebody pecking over me the whole time. I'm trusted to just get on with ideas and things. And I have got some reference points I can go to, but that's basically what I've got. I also like the fact it's so varied. It's untrue. I mean, I literally am every department. I'm the IT department, the tech department. With the choir over, I was mom, I was getting the costumes for them, and the marketing department, fundraiser, and I've even been caterer at Brands Hatch.
It sounds fantastic. How lovely. So what about the hardest part of your job? What's that?
The hardest part, I think, is working in isolation. Definitely, because you know, if you're an ideas person, a creative person, or you want to just get ideas, you know, you kind of go around in circles here, talking to myself, go for a walk, come back. That's the bit, you know, I don't have water cooler moments. I don't have the coffee break chats. And it's quite hard, although I've got 2 other colleagues, one works 5 hours a week or something, the other one works part-time. They've got busy lives, homeschooling with children, so I can't easily interrupt them either. So that's the bit I'd say is the hardest. And also the tendency during the winter to not even leave the house until the weekend because you're working all day and it's dark when you finish. And then the other really hard thing, which you guys will find if a fundraiser, is how do you actually rattle the tin at someone? You know, it's having the nerve to cold call or whatever. Those are the hardest bits.
Yeah, gosh, I think the hardest bit, all of those things will be hard for me because you know, I know you're an extrovert and so am I, so we do need other people around us, don't we?
Yeah.
But then, yeah, definitely that kind of, can you give this money? Actually asking for the money is really hard.
It's sort of around it, but then doing the ask is the hardest bit.
Yeah, I get that. So tell us what you do to raise money. What different things do you do?
Right, well, there's the pre-lockdown and after lockdown, which isn't there yet, but or during lockdown. Pre-lockdown, when I first started, the original things I said was we did a choir tour. The idea of that was to bring these beautiful voices over and take them around England and let them sing to people, tell their story, and get people on board with you. I mean, it's a really easy. That's a really easy. It was hard work, but it's a really easy thing to do because people just fall in love with them, and they give money, so you increase your database from that perspective. And also we'd go to exhibitions and, oh, those are terrible. I hate those when you stand and hope to get a contact card. Not very much fun, those. But we've tried that. Or occasionally we'll get to go into schools and do an assembly. That was partly during this choir tour thing, because I wanted to get them to go into schools and do masterclasses. So, and then of course churches, if you've got any connections. So the normal plan is to get some visits to these, take a service and that kind of thing. However, for the last year, 0. We haven't been able to do absolutely any of that. Just sort of get a notebook and go for it, I think, with fundraising. I don't particularly think there's any point doing a fundraising degree because I honestly think most of it's done on the hoof. You learn as you go, you know.
It's quite a creative activity, isn't it? So what's happened since lockdown then?
Well, we did. Well, believe it or not, because we literally had planned to bring the choir over in 2021, and that was going to be because it takes a year, pretty much full on a year to organise something like that. So that was on I'm going to get started on that, plus the exhibitions, blah, blah. However, literally within a week of us deciding that, we went into full lockdown. And so we decided, well, let's just try and do a virtual one, see what happens. And so therefore I had to try and organise. It was quite hard because the actual choir master used to travel up to rehearse them, but they couldn't really do that. So they had to form themselves into their own little choir and rehearse. I got them to film it outside. It was a bit homespun, but we launched it as a Facebook live event, although it was pre-recorded because there's no way you can trust the internet connection there. and we didn't exactly sell tickets, but we got people to register to watch it and sent them the link. And we put in, well, at first it was just going to be a bit of fun. We're just going to have the choir sing. Then we thought they were so struggling financially there that they really, really needed help. So we got Kevin Ward, who's the pastor who started the whole charity, to speak from the heart and appeal, which we played at it. I couldn't believe it. We raised £30,000 off the back of that.
Oh my goodness me, that's amazing.
The whole choir tour, which took a year of my work and 2 weeks of their lives, raised 20,000, and this raised 30,000.
Oh my goodness me, that's amazing.
I know, it was like, well, yeah, I was blown away. So life has changed a bit now, and we're still fathoming out literally as we go. We just sort of keep changing with the flow and the vibe at the time, and because you can't repeat that either. It wouldn't be the same. If we did a little bit one at Christmas. They did do a Christmas carol thing, but it didn't really have the big punch appeal, or even the same effect in that way. On the other hand, people enjoyed it. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. So what's the biggest fundraiser you ever did, and why was it big? Why was it big?
Well, in terms of money that was the choir, the virtual concert, which was amazing. That was the biggest thing that brought in terms of money coming in. But in some ways, for me, I think probably back when I started doing it as grassroots, like community fundraising, where my friend, in the days when everybody liked going to balls, gala dinners and that kind of thing, we did a series. I think we did 3 in a row of themed balls in our village hall, which were ultimately a fundraiser. But in a way, it was a way of giving people a really nice night out, and then you'd run a few normal things on the night to make some money. And that was to start our church is a very beautiful 13th century church in a village, but the congregation wasn't exactly huge or loaded with money to keep the upkeep. So we formed a Friends of St. Mary's site, thing, so that we'd be there for the falling roof and all that. So that we did used to do things for that. And they were probably the biggest things when you're having dinners for 150 in the village hall. And we did a Hollywood one, a Bollywood one, a captain's table one, that kind of thing.
They sound great. We used to run a ball every year from when I was in the ladies' circle.
Right.
And the thing about it was that the people who came were the same old faces, and we did used to raise money, but it wasn't a lot. It was more, I think, more social. We'd end up with about £2,000, and it'd have, and I know that's not to be sniffed at, but it was hard work for £2,000. If that makes sense.
We did have a successful one. My mate that I go camping with, Lizzie, and I, we did an auction of promises. And we ended up, because people kept wanting to give us things, we actually turned it into, it wasn't just a kind of a paper exercise that they sometimes are. We made it into a little event, in her barn, and we had an auctioneer because we had all sorts of strange things given. And that, weirdly enough, made £8,000.
Wow, yeah, you just
don't know.
Odds it, can you?
You can't. When you think of the effort putting on a ball and staging it and all that, compared to the effort of just getting people's things they want to donate or promises to make, and putting on a pine pickle cold dinner with a self-bar, and yet it makes all that money. So
talk to me about how you motivate yourself.
I motivate myself. Oh, well, I mean, I'm generally a positive person, so I always try to think, right, it's not all bad. What's, what's good at, what I'm good at. But um, one of the things that really does motivate me is hearing stories of the children who have come into the program, say abandoned as babies. They come in through social services to Balembu, they grow up there, and have a really, very cared for life. And then they get to the age of, I don't know, it's older than ours would be because they're a little bit behind. So maybe age 20 or whatever. And then you see that they
Yeah.
start to have aspirations for the future. So we are raising leaders. And for instance, there's this girl called Tanelli. I think that's how you say it, Tanelli. She is actually is now interning in the media department in Balembu for 9 months before she starts her studies. And she's obviously got tertiary sponsorship for her to complete her bachelor's degree in journalism and mass communication. And she's doing that at
Oh,
the
wow.
Swatini. And her quote, this is the quote she gave me, was, "My dream is one day to start my own media company that will produce short films, provide advertising services." So isn't that lovely when, that's exactly what motivates me every day, to think anything I do can just give one child a start in life that can mean that they actually go on. So so basically, if somebody can be motivated, to follow their dreams, and that's
Yeah.
what gives me the joy. Um,
Yeah, I can see that, because it really is. I mean, people probably don't really understand what their lives would be like if they didn't live in Balembu.
yeah.
If they hadn't, you can't imagine, can
Well, I
you?
know at the moment we're hearing
Be.
these ghastly stories at the moment, which we just can't contemplate the fact that this could happen, but it does because their culture, because of being locked up. There's lots and lots and lots of teenage pregnancies, some of which are primary school age girls, and it's because they're cooped up at home, the male dominant environment, and it's beyond our actual,
Yeah,
recognition.
it's just awful, isn't it? Yeah.
So even if there's only 400 at the moment, if there can be 400 more, if we can rescue these children and give them a start to influence the country in a good way,
Yeah,
gradually,
absolutely.
yeah.
I
And
love
then,
that about Balembu. I love that, we're not just here to try and provide for their physical and emotional needs, but we're there, to do spiritual needs and their future needs as well.
yeah,
I
and
think it's amazing.
gradually get them to go out into the communities and influence other people to gradually transform the nation. One
Yeah,
life at a time. That's our one life at a time. That's our kind of strap line, as it were.
yeah,
But in
it's
terms of
wonderful.
motivating for me physically day to day, the course I was talking about that I'd been on, it's only an
Yeah,
online thing we did. It was really helpful. This lady was explaining how, you in order to be motivated, you need to kind of have plans for the day. You need to break it up. Some people are 90-minute concentration levels, which is me. I'm a kind of in a
yeah,
school timetable thing. Other people, it has to be half an hour, and you need to get up, you need to change, walk around, get a drink more water, and that kind of thing. And also, what was the other thing that was really helpful? Yeah, the whole business of brainstorming. I said it's really difficult to know how to do that and motivate yourself when you're sat on your own. And I never realized this, that the brain, well, I suppose I did realize the brain had two sides, didn't realize the function. So one side is the brainstorming side. So when you switch that on, when you're on your own, just do that. Don't look for corrections. Don't just throw things anywhere on a piece of paper, on a screen, on post-its. Just brainstorm, get your ideas down and dump them. Then, on a different occasion, maybe an hour later, two later, then you sit down with your pen and you undo the things. And I'd never seen that before. I'd never sort of thought of that way before. So you don't get stuck, because otherwise you have this great idea and then you talk yourself out of it.
you
So
do. Yeah, you do, and that works for teams as well. Actually, for those of you who are fundraising, more than one person. Yeah. And so, what about your top tips then? Have you got some top tips for people about fundraising?
well, I think tip number one is it's not a qualification, if you like. It's just everybody can be a fundraiser. It's not something special that I've gone to college for or got a certificate. And I think it all comes from inside you. It's it's grassroots. You start where you are and what you've got available to you. And and that's basically so therefore I started with just doing local stuff, really. In fact, it was funny because somebody else wanted to get into fundraising and events, and she was a lawyer, so she had all these skills, but she didn't have anything on her CV. But she was determined she wanted to do this. And I said, well, the simplest thing is go to anything, offer to fundraise for them, just book a village hall or something and do something, even if it's a whisk drive or something.
Yeah.
Because once you've got some experience, then the next thing goes on and on. So start with whatever you are able to do, but also pick up something that you enjoy doing, and even better, get a friend along with you, because then it's not so lonesome and you won't talk yourself out of it as easily. So, just get another person to help come along the road with your team, ideally. But sometimes teams are harder to organise. So, sometimes, it's just better to have, one or two people involved.
Yeah.
Then what you're fundraising for needs to have is the word emotive. It's a word of today anyway, an emotive hook. So that what you're fundraising for is going to motivate people to give to you because their heart's being pulled, being touched. I think that's normally, I'm like that. If you see loads of people say, will you fund, will you sponsor me to do this, sponsor me to do that? What I look at is what's it for? Or when you realize that, there's somebody, you read down to the story of why somebody's doing it. Often they're really quite personal. So
yeah, they are, aren't they?
Yeah. I think, these, not Baker, what seems to be I've learned, I've not done it myself yet, but I've learned this week, last week, sorry, is that challenges are the easiest thing to get people to raise money on. It can be almost anything, hula hooping for a week or any physical challenge, big or smaller, seems to be a thing for some reason. Everybody sponsors a friend to do it. And that was what Facebook was telling us. Facebook fundraisers are the easiest thing to do, apparently. Just set a challenge and it runs with itself, apparently.
Ooh, that's really helpful. And it's interesting, actually, because it's kind of along the same lines as the conversation we're currently having on Shine about, what platforms do you use for fundraising?
Yeah, well, I learned on one of these things I did, Facebook, and I'm okay because I'm actually registered on the Facebook thing, so I'm going to try it as the charity. But you just literally, people just share on the same platform and give on the same platform. So, as I say, it's uncharted territory for me, but it's definitely the way lots of people are going. And it could be like walk 100 miles in May or something, And then for some reason, apparently people don't even need to know what the charity is, and they never often ask. They just do the challenge, and that's what they want to do.
The challenge, and they're quite happy to, that's great.
Yeah, that was a new thing for me. And then also, I don't have many, I don't think, but use influencers. This seems to be the new thing as well. These, social media people try and find influence or people that can influence, to spread the word about what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you can get an influencer, then you're made. And then other than that, I'd say the best thing is treat everybody as your best friend, especially when you're communicating with them, because if you can be personable and make it seem, not even seem, in reality, yes, we are a national charity and our income's probably creeping up towards 500,000. So we're sizable, but in the end, it's just me. And I don't do corporate speak. And so therefore, when I'm communicating with people, and it's building relationships with communication, rather than just always having a standard thank you or a standard, and a lot of charities, which are bigger ones, you give this much money, then you get this. I don't think people want the key ring or the, whatever.
Yeah.
Just, a phone call occasionally or something that's a personal touch.
Yeah, and I think particularly one of the things I've been thinking about a lot on with our projects really is letting them know the results of, this is what happened with the money or whatever, is I think very important, isn't it? So that people can see, like we do with the knitting one, where people are donating knitted items that they've made for premature babies. Just being able to say to them, look at this big picture of all these things that you guys have all knitted together, and we've got this many now, and we're going to send them off to the charity, is just so lovely.
Yeah, and then hopefully getting something back at the end. Even though it's just a little email saying, "Oh, thank you so much." What we've found has been really good at getting quite good over in Bulembu is taking little films of things and that really helps, because it goes back to the person. You know, you send them a film, them saying specifically thank you for something. That means a lot. It's just an admin time thing, but it does go a long way.
It does, yeah. Thank you very much. That's really, really helpful, Juanita, and really interesting too. So yeah, if anybody's got any questions for Juanita, then do just send her a message on chat.
Yeah, send me a message on chat.
I'm sure she'd be delighted to answer you at Juanita Hughes.
Well, thank you. It's been fun.
Okay. Thanks, Juanita.